Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Something Something with Eric Newman. I am him. Today we will discuss the topic of female intrasexual competition. Webster Dictionary defines it as a competition between women over a potential mate. Now, obviously, I've always known how big of and powerful a topic this is, but I just want to start with a personal story like I often like to do. A couple of years ago, I dated a girl who straight up told me, I never heard this so bluntly before, that her friend group, her female friend group, is compiled specifically of girls who have different taste in men. Fucking, isn't that pretty bold of her, I thought, right? They were all white girls, but one of them loved, like, jocks. One of them loved nerdy guys. One of the girls loved dating black and Hispanic guys. So obviously the black and Hispanic woman dated me. But it was interesting. We talked about it for a little while, and I found it so interesting, and I started to think about it a lot more because there's so much intersexual competition amongst men and amongst women. But I want to focus on women here because it's way more interesting to me. Women compete for the best man. That's sort of what it comes down to. And like I've said in a bunch of previous episodes, dating app statistics prove, although I am anti-dating app, statistics prove that around 10% of men get 90% of the swipes on dating apps, which applies to real life more or less. And you know, and women know pretty quickly who those 10% of men are. We'll call them the 10% man. Women know it pretty quickly. It's pretty obvious to everyone. I've also read studies that it's like 20%, but also it's not really scientific, so we're just ballparking here. So let's just use 10% since it makes it seem cooler, like I'm part of the 10%. But yeah, most of the women want a small percentage of the men, and women start competing and putting together a group of girls that you're not directly competing with will put you in the best position. Because if you're going to compete for the 10% man, you might as well do it with supporters and women around you that you know won't be a threat. But there's still competition, obviously, outside of your own, self-compiled friend group. Like, even when you're not competing for the same type of guy, you're still competing for the best guy and the best relationship. Like I said, there was that group of 4 girls, and each one of them had a different preference. What they liked physically, to some extent. And, but the competition goes a lot deeper than that. It's, how does my relationship dynamic compare with those 3 other girls' relationship dynamics? And I want to back this up for a second. This would be that part in documentaries, there's always that part where they rewind, and it goes like it's the part of the doc where the record would scratch and we rewind to the flashback. This would be that part in this pod right now. So before this group of 4 college girls is assembled, let's just use college as the example. We'll rewind back to when these girls first showed up at their first frat party. It's 20 girls, let's say, right? 20 girls go into are in a sorority together. They're freshmen in college. They go to their first cool frat party. And I use the term cool very loosely here. But, every girl walks in a little guarded, a little nervous, hoping they look their prettiest, wanting to make a good impression. The second they walk in the room, they know exactly who the prettiest girls in the room are. All 20 girls go, oh, those 2 girls. They know right away and what it signals to them is the intrasexual competition and this sort of subconscious feeling of these are going to be the girls that are going to get the most male attention. And so automatically they feel sort of threatened and insecure. A small percentage of guys that the majority of those girls find attractive will be fighting for the, few most beautiful girls in the room. And, because as we all know, men are shallow pieces of shit, LOL. But, it causes competition between the women naturally. And it's also tough for the 2 prettiest girls in the room because when they like a certain guy, like the frat master or whatever the fuck he's called. I find frats to be so dumb, to be honest, man. I joined one for a year in college, but the culture is just so stupid, in my opinion. I like the idea that there's a hierarchy because I think that sort of leads you nicely into the next phase of life, that there's gonna be people who are gonna be your superiors at work, and it's sort of just the way, popularity starts from the second we start talking and having conversations and being in group settings, obviously from a very young age. But I don't I just it's so funny too because I'm like the most frat looking anti-frat guy. Well, it's so funny. I got into a fight with my girlfriend recently, and I was like, and afterwards, like 20 minutes later, I came around and I was like, hey, I'm sorry I was a douchebag. And she's like, yeah, but that's like kind of your thing, which I thought was a funny response. But I think a lot of, it's so funny because I think a lot of women automatically think I'm like this like frat guy, but I'm really not. I'm a douchebag, but in a variety of other ways. Not that way. And but anyway, so all the girls know right away who the most attractive girls in the room are, in any room, and they're jealous of those girls because in their minds those girls are going to get the male attention, the majority of the male attention, and most of the guys they like have been taken away by that girl. Even if it's not actually that specific girl, guys she's liked in the past have been taken away or felt that they're or guys she's dated in the past, she's maybe felt their relationship has been threatened by a girl like that. So she's already coming in with like sort of an air of like, of having her guard up and being, a little nervous around that person. Anyway, so when the prettiest girls like a certain guy or certain guys, they think they're clearing the field saying, he's mine, right? The prettiest girl in the room sees the best catch male-wise from across the room, and she goes, okay, that guy's mine. I choose that guy. And all the girls are probably into that guy now to some degree, whether they know much about him or not, whether he has substance or not, because subconsciously they don't think they're as good of a catch as the woman who wants that guy. So now they're driven to be more attracted to him because someone they feel to be superior to them is into him, if that makes sense. Because they're going, well, if the most beautiful girl in our sorority wants him, I want him. And somehow if those other girls can steal away that guy's attention from that beautiful woman, not only do they get the guy, they also get to say fuck you to that other girl they don't like for no real rational reason. So it's really a win-win. It's like a double win. And that's so that's kind of leads to this larger discussion of like women are the people that solidify that 10% man being and or remaining a 10% man. Now, obviously, it's not all up to women, right? There's certain things that just biologically are attractive to women, right? A guy who's good looking, a guy who's tall, a guy who's charming. Charming is more subjective than the latter examples, but a guy could come into a room and just, sort of like laugh with everyone and have a good time with everyone and sort of has positive energy. That's he's charming the room. And so although it almost becomes objective at that point, right? But women also contribute, aside from those like objectively good qualities that make a 10% man a 10% man, women also contribute to that. Like take Pete Davidson to his core, and I like Pete, and I respect the shit out of him, but he's kind of an outlier to the 10% man theory a little bit because aside from his fame and success, he's just kind of a funny, average looking guy. But he's gotten some of the most beautiful, successful women in the world, and every celebrity he's dated has led him to more celebrities. So one beautiful celebrity says, that guy, and now loads of more beautiful celebrities are like, well, it's got to be that guy then. In simple terms, it's the stock market. When more women, consumers, invest in one stock, the 10% guy, the stock goes up, and more women want to invest in it. And once in a while, you can get a Bernie Madoff motherfucker who's the dating version of a Ponzi scheme, who convinces you he's a 10% man, but then has a micro penis or sucks in bed or gets drunk and hits you, like whatever it is. I love how I just equated micro penis to domestic abuse, which is like, by the way, if we asked women, I don't know which one they would prefer. Zoran knows all too well. Look, both Zoran and John know all about the micro penis and the domestic abuse. I'm not going to say which one knows which, but let's just say we're covered here. When a girl walks into a room, she knows exactly who the prettiest girls in the room are. That was the point I was making this whole time. And they hate them immediately. Not really hate them, but it feels like they have feelings of animosity towards them because they know those girls are going to get all the male attention. And women want male attention. And men want female attention. But we're not focusing on intrasexual competition between men this episode. That's for a later episode. We are focusing on women strictly this episode. And also, I do believe, let's say let's diverge for a moment here, right? Married men or men in relationships. There's sort of this ongoing debate of whether it helps your chances with other women or harms. And again, I am not, I'm anti-cheating, but just the idea that we can have the discussion or debate of whether a man being in a monogamous relationship with a woman helps or hurts his chances with other women. Just the very fact that we can debate that, I think, shows that it's kind of fucked up. I mean, Pete Davidson wasn't married to any of these women, but he was in relationships with Kim Kardashian and Emily Ratajkowski and all these gorgeous, successful women that every man on planet Earth would, kill for. So it only helped. And I have no idea about the overlap between these relationships. If there was any, if they were in monogamous relationships, I don't know. I just know that the idea that a man is settled down or in a relationship doesn't subconsciously does not deter a woman from wanting to be with him. Subconsciously, it probably makes the woman more interested. On a conscious level, it's obviously fucked up to get involved in somebody's relationship or try to tamper with any of that, obviously. But I'm just saying from a subconscious standpoint, and we talk about subconscious versus conscious outlook a lot, throughout the course of this podcast, it only helps you as a man. And I think because it's a sign of being able to land a woman, being able to commit to a woman, being able to maintain a relationship. Now, we have no idea the details of what that relationship is like or what's going on there. But specifically, if it's a very attractive woman that the guy's in a relationship or in a marriage with, other women are going to be curious. And I think that's, again, I don't know how much of that has to do with the man himself or the fact that the woman feels competitive with the other woman. I'm at the Comedy Cellar every night, and women try to put themselves in the best position to land the best catch. And that's what makes a place like New York City so challenging to date in. There are endless options. I'm in the Comedy Cellar every night. We're actually above the cellar right now at the Comedy Cellar studio. Thank you, Noam, Liz, Esty, all of you. Love you guys. We're filming now. This is a breeding ground for beautiful women who have just moved to New York. There's an endless line of beautiful 23-year-old girls who are just out of college, and a lot of them were the most beautiful woman in every sorority in every college around the country, and they come here single. But instead of competing with those 30 or 40 sorority girls in their small college, now they're competing with every sorority girl in every college for still that 10% man. And I want to get deeper into this concept of 10% man. As I've said before, if 90% of women are competing for 10% of men, and I want to get deeper into this concept of the 10% man, right? Which is a phrase I've coined just now. As I've said before, if 90% approximately, we're using these rough numbers, obviously, if 90% of women are competing for 10% of men, and that 10 women want one guy, right? It equates to 10 women want one guy that one guy is the 10 women's first choice on average. Once that one guy gets locked up by one of those women, the remaining 9 women have to settle for their backup choice. There's 9 women left. And the one guy who were those 9 women's first choice is now gone. He doesn't exist anymore. So what happens? To some degree, they're settling. Maybe for a guy who's really crazy about them, maybe she's not as into it, but technically he has a lot of great qualities in a relationship, great on paper, as we said last episode, makes them feel safe. There's a lot of things that women seek out in a partner, but to some degree, there's some level of settling, so she's like, I guess I'm in a relationship now, but I'm not that excited about it deep down, whether she cares to admit it to anybody in her life or even herself. And like I mentioned earlier, even if women aren't competing for the same kind of guy, they're certainly competing for the best relationship. So let's use that 4-friend group as an example from before. 3 of the girls are in relationships. This is a fake scenario. 3 of the girls are in relationships where they're happy, at least on paper. None of them are with their first choice guys, but they're with solid, reliable guys who are crazy about them, like the vast majority of girls, like the vast majority that girls date and marry. Okay, so those three are taken. And then the 4th girl's single. She's taking her time. She's focusing on her career. She's beautiful. She has everything going for her. She's kind. She's sweet. She's fun. And, she has her own hobbies. And she knows her value completely. And isn't going to settle for a relationship unless she's crazy about the guy and he's crazy about her. Mutual love. That's what this girl is staying single for the idea that when she does it, she's doing it correctly. And then one day she goes to brunch with her friends and she goes, I met the guy. And she tells the story, and right away the 3 girls can tell she's crazy about this guy. And it doesn't matter whether or not the guy is technically the other 3 girls' type or not. It's the way the guy is making the 4th girl feel and act and behave. All of a sudden, the 4th girl who wanted to hang out with her friends all the time is now spending a lot more time and giving preference to this new boyfriend. She wants to give her time to him. She doesn't feel obligated. She deeply has the desire to spend a night with him, then go out with her friends, which maybe she's never done before, and maybe they've never seen her do before. Those 3 girls are immediately competitive again. Not to get their friend's guy, although that kind of shittiness exists too, obviously, but more to find a guy that they relate to and are crazy about the way the 4th friend is crazy about her guy. It's almost like a wake-up call to the rest of the group. I've seen it. I remember I was dating a girl, and we went out to dinner with her friend and her friend's boyfriend, and her friend said out loud in front of everyone, I've never seen the girl I was dating, I've never seen her this affectionate before with a guy. And what does that do? Whether the girl feels like she got the guy she wanted or not, the other friend, she's certainly, at least the wheels are turning. She's going, oh, okay, wow, now I'm seeing my friend act in a way I've never seen her act before. Do I act that way to my boyfriend? Is there somebody I've acted that way towards in the past that I should be with instead? Is there somebody out there for me that's better? I'm not saying we don't all have some level of this questioning, no matter how happy we are, but like to a high degree, this girl is now a little shook, and it makes them question their own relationships. I did a joke on stage one time. It was just like a premise I was working out, but it was like I said some line like, nothing throws a wrench in the friend group like one of the girls dating someone she really likes, because you disrupt the system, because everybody else in the group is forced to ask themselves internally, is this the best I can do for myself? And that's great, because anything that happens that's polarizing, that forces you to ask questions and find answers about who you are and what you want, is ultimately a good thing. I took an acting class like 5 years ago after my long-term breakup, and there was like 8 girls in the class. And I slept with one of them who was engaged, not proud of it, but fuck, that was fun. Got a blowjob from the other girl. We were acting out a scene in class, and she was a nurse and I was the patient, and I got to act this out and get head from her. It was fucking while I was simultaneously trying to actually get to know and build a friendship with another girl who I thought could be a potential partner for me. And the girl that I was actually talking to and taking seriously found out about the other two and was just hated me, and that was it. But and it hurt. But it's just an example of how women compete in whatever environment they're in. The sorority, the acting class, whatever environment you find yourself in, there's a hierarchy and the competition begins amongst women. I didn't have sex until junior year of college, and I think I only had sex with like 2 or 3 girls when I was in college. But man, I would have loved, but I lived at home. God, I would have loved to go away to school, man. It's 4 years. I would have fucking killed it in those frats, those stupid frats. I would have done it without alcohol, because I feel like a lot of these frat guys are just like, let's get these girls wasted and give them drugs, and then it'll be easy. Like fucking losers. Not every frat guy, but like a good amount of them. But anyway, that's for a different episode called Frat Guys. Coming soon. I don't know when, but it's coming soon. Yeah, but there's so many examples of movies and TV shows where the guy is into the girl in his friend group, and he's trying, and maybe she has some feelings for him, but for whatever reason she doesn't want to explore them, and the guy moves on and starts dating another girl, and the other girl's hot, and then the original girl suddenly goes crazy and starts making moves on the guy. And there's 2 things going on there simultaneously, as I mentioned before. There's the thought of the original girl losing the guy and a new attractive woman getting him and therefore beating her out. So it's like 2 blows at once. Cruel Intentions is a good example, I think, that's come to mind, right? The whole time, Cruel Intentions, movie from the late 90s, which is the era I tend to reference most often. Oh God, do you jerk off to the lesbian scene? Sarah Michelle Gellar and Selma Hayek? That was a good one. Not Selma Hayek, Selma Blair. Selma Blair and Selma Hayek would be good though. Selma Blair and Sarah Michelle Gellar make out. Yeah. The whole time, I remember my mom, it was playing on my VHS, and my mom walks in and she's like, "What is this?" And I was like, "Don't act like you didn't go to college, Mom." But the whole time, Ryan Phillippe is going for Sarah Michelle Gellar's character, right? He's like obsessed with her. Like he wants to sleep with her more than anything in the world. And she rejects him the whole time. And then later on in the film, he falls in love with Reese Witherspoon's character. And Annette. And doesn't want Sarah Michelle Gellar's, and he doesn't want Sarah Michelle Gellar's character anymore. So what does Sarah Michelle Gellar's character do? She tries to seduce him, and aggressively. You remember this? They make a bet. And she said, if I win the bet, if you can sleep with this girl, I'll sleep with you. And then he sleeps with her, and then he falls in love with her, so he doesn't want to sleep with Sarah Michelle Gellar anymore. She gets jealous and goes nuts. And it's like how much, and I've often thought about it, like how much of it is her wanting Ryan Phillippe's character versus her winning out against Reese Witherspoon's character. It's so hard to know what that ratio is. But one thing's for sure. The best way to get a pretty girl to like you is to have another pretty girl like you. Guys, how do you get a pretty girl to like you? Get another pretty girl to like you. Every guy I feel like should carry around a fake wedding band in his pocket. So if he's striking out, you just put that baby right on, and you're not cheating because you're not in a relationship, and you're making her. But you're giving the girl what she wants, which is, I get to sleep with this attractive man and I get to fuck over an attractive woman. There's no real attractive woman there, but the wedding band says otherwise, right? And then you get to figure out who the real shitty women are because you get to carry that around. So it's almost like a character assessment, right? A little bit. I like this idea. Guys, single guys, don't ever cheat, but always create the illusion of cheating. Right? You take the ring, you get a fake wedding band. And by the way, it's got to look like an expensive wedding band too, right? Because, we like, yeah, women could. So you got to look like your quality, and then maybe you've married into a successful, wealthy, family, So yeah, get an expensive looking fake wedding band, put it on. The lengths us men have to go to get a woman. But yeah, no, intrasexual competition between women is very real, and And it's tough. And again, like I feel bad sort of for everybody involved to some degree, because I just feel like it's like, I feel like very often women mistake comfort and the feeling of being wanted by a guy for actual love and desire. I think women will often bypass the idea. I think women will often bypass their own feelings of desire and sacrifice them for a man who desires them and wants them, and that's only part of the package. So I think when one of their friends obviously dates somebody whom they desire, I think it just rattles everybody. And I think it's hard. And that's sort of what makes one of the things that makes, relationships and competition so tough. It's just that idea. I mean, some things are like, right, there's sort of nature versus nurture, right? Like some things you can't control. Like height is a very attractive quality. Like a tall man is very attractive naturally to I mean, I've never met a woman who sees a guy who's over 6 feet and says that's gross or I'm not into that. Like, I think being a tall man is one of those like objective biological characteristics that obviously are beyond our control as men. A living, like a good income, and like being financially being financially successful, that's somewhat within our control. I mean, like obviously like you have to make smart decisions and there's probably a great deal of networking that goes along with that and all that stuff, but like that's definitely more in our control than just a biological characteristic of height. And personality is something that could, everybody's got a natural personality. Like, people are more witty than other people, and people are more charming than other people or more engaging than other people, but there's still ways to sort of improve that throughout time. And a lot of it is practice and having interactions with a lot of people and going on a lot of dates and like learning how to talk to women. Like a lot of that stuff is a learned skill. The 10%, being the 10% man is sort of all in, all those qualities sort of in, and it, there's just like a lot of factors there, but I think, some of it is within our control, and confidence goes a long way. And that's something that certainly can be learned. I mean, people are, I think, dependent on their childhood environment and a multitude of factors, can be confident or less confident, but that's certainly something that could be worked on and improve over time, depending on how you feel about your life and your own value and your own self-worth, and creating an environment where you're surrounded by people that appreciate you and whom you appreciate. I mean, that like only will help your confidence. But there's so many factors that sort of make you, a 10% man. But if we're going just based off of dating apps, right? All people are seeing on dating apps is a profile. And oftentimes that profile is age, height, attractiveness. So it's just like, there's just a few bullet points that sort of make you a 10% man on the apps. But in real life, I think it's a lot more of a gray area. And those numbers can shift a little bit and always have some room for moving around. But yeah, ultimately, I think, get your fucking life together, dude. And just remember, if you're a man who has a lot of self-worth and believes in yourself, and is working really hard and is being kind, you're doing all the things you can to make yourself stand out and be that guy. And that's sort of all you can ask for. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Women, keep fighting for us. Keep fucking fighting each other for us. Anyway, that is our episode. Thank you so much for listening to another segment of Something with Eric Newman. Shout out to Zoran, Johnny, and we do this every week and have started doing it at the Comedy Cellar. So I'm very excited for you guys to keep watching, and thank you for everything. I'm Eric Newman. Bye.